So last week, going to pick up my kids at summer school is a daily habit in the summer. And I pull into the parking spot and I get that phone call from the school. And I'm like, this can't be good. We're 10 minutes away from pickup. I'm getting a phone call from school. And I don't get too many phone calls from school. So it's also kind of a new feeling to have as well. Get that phone call. They tell me that my son fell off the playground and his arm is really hurting and he's really crying. So I was like, I just pulled in. I'll meet you at door number 3. And we go through, we meet him there, and he's just really, really uncertain and crying, and he's scared, holding his arm, saying, my arm hurts. And our family hasn't broken a bone yet. So this is kind of a whole new experience. We haven't really had any injuries that were underneath the surface like this. And so this was one of those moments where everything you've been doing as a dad gets tested. Your patience gets tested. Your heartbeat gets tested. Your ability to project calm into their presence as well. Because if you feel uncertain, if you feel scared, if you feel like, oh my God, he's never going on another playground again, type feeling on the inside, and maybe you have a hard time balancing being a helicopter parent versus letting your kids fall and get some bruises on, this might be a feeling where you're like, I feel like a failure as a dad. I'm supposed to protect my kid, and he just got hurt, and I wasn't even here to protect him. Now, when kids are at school, this is something we almost just kind of accept. But when reality comes to you and says, this is what's happened, it's different than what you assume is just kind of something you may not even bring consciousness to. So I share this story because this is the moment I'm really proud of, because I was able to remain calm. I remained the lowest heartbeat in the room. I helped him. I just held him. I didn't say a lot of words. And I was just wanting my calmness to be portrayed to him. Now, it didn't always work because there was times where his arm really hurt and he would start crying a little bit louder. And in the car, he was crying a little bit louder. And we still had to go pick up his sisters at the other schools within the town before we could even go to the doctor to see what was really going on. And throughout this entire time, I'm still just kind of helping him take like deep breaths, like take deep breaths. You can get the pain, you can get your breath, you can get your crying under control by just getting in touch with your breath. I'm a big believer in meditation and what it can do for you and how much power can actually come from getting control of your breath versus your emotions. And I'm helping him through that as well. Now, a lot of it didn't stick because he's only 6. But this isn't about sticking. This is about teaching. And teaching in this moment is teaching him something that he's going to call back on in the future of how I showed up in this moment and how he showed up in this moment. And I want him to feel confident. I want him to feel like we can do it together. That's something that I've been telling him. I was telling him in the doctor's office when he got his brace put on, because he did end up getting a fracture. So he has this kind of makeshift cast on, not a full-edged cast yet. But that moment I was like, we can get through this together. I know you're scared right now, but we can get through it together, and we can get through together anything. And we tried going to summer school today, and it didn't work. He banged his arm against the door. And again, I got a phone call saying my son's crying, got to go pick him up. And I just sat there in the office with him for a good 10 minutes and just kind of sat with him and let him hear what was going on. We talked about it. I'd let him cry. I would just held him, not saying a whole lot of words, letting him calm down, reminding him to take some breaths, because I can't talk to him when he's really irrational and crying and lost control, but I can talk to him when he's calmed down. So as a dad, I need to remain calm, train myself to continue to be calm, even through an anxiety moment of worrying about what was going on. Because in this moment, it's not about me, it's about him. And if I get that equation backwards, that's where the anxiety, that maybe where you can get mad, you were so just, he needed to go to school so you could get something done. Doesn't matter. All of that is just life. And many times when I'm telling these stories to other people, I would always say, that's just what fatherhood looks like today. It's not always these big, sexy pictures that we see on Instagram, or if you follow me on Instagram, Ben_Killoy, that you might see of me, because it's not always about those pictures. It's about showing up, even in the non-sexy moments, and projecting what you want him to grow into. And one thing that I'm really proud of is teaching him that together we can get through anything. I think that was one mantra that I think out of this whole experience so far, it's been about a week. That's one mantra, that we can get through anything if we talk about it and we get through it together. And it's when he feels alone and isolated, that's when his anxiety goes up, he gets nervous, and he gets unsure of himself. But he's 6 years old, and as a dad, I can help build his confidence in a way that he knows it comes from the inside, not something that I give him. And so this whole story is what do you do when you get that call? You show up. You show up with everything that you've been practicing. If you've been listening to this podcast, if you've been showing up as a dad trying to figure out what all this meant, these are the moments where it all kind of comes to fruition and rubber hits the road, because it's that rubber hitting the road that your kids need, and they need you to be calm. They need you to be the lowest heartbeat in the room, and they need you to be the adult that they're growing into, not one they need to avoid. Because if your anxiety is off the charts, their anxiety will be off the charts, and that behavior learned early on will just repeat itself in similar moments. May not be breaking his arm, but he'll repeat that learned behavior later in life. So when you get that call, show up, remain the lowest heartbeat in the room, and model what you want him to do in a similar moment in the future. And I'll be back again with you tomorrow.